good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you happen to be. And I'm here to talk a little bit about what our overall aim actually is, why we're doing what we do, what the purpose of Zinzino is, and what my purpose is. And although it's a complex set of issues, my prime purpose, and what I hope, this journey that I hope you will join me in, is to find a replacement for the current model of healthcare, which is a complete failure. We've had a century of the development of a pharmaceutical model, primarily pharmaceutical model of healthcare. And while the pharmaceutical industry has grown fat, our public health has deteriorated according to almost any metric you care to choose. The pharmaceutical model is too toxic and too expensive to be able to use that approach in a prophylactic manner. And what we need to find is a way of helping people to keep healthier without drugs. I think that the developing science of pharmaconutrition allows us to do just that. And we are hearing and seeing almost every day stories of people with chronic degenerative diseases, diseases of civilization, if you will, that have experienced remarkable recoveries. You might almost say cures. Now, I know that that is a word that will make orthodox medical people and clinical scientists bristle, because you're not supposed to be able to cure chronic degenerative diseases. But that's in fact what we are seeing. But before I talk more about what it is that we're offering, let's quickly examine the terrain that the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry have left for us. And what I want to explain is why what we are doing is so very necessary. So let me quickly bring this through to full screen. What I'm talking about are the so-called diseases of civilization. The two most common areas of these diseases include the cancers and the cardiovascular and cerebrovascular pathologies, but there are many, many others. And I think that part of the problem that medical scientists have had up until now is that we've used this term, diseases of civilization. I don't like the term. It's hopelessly vague. If these are diseases that are caused by civilization, how can we prevent them or cure them? Does that mean that we have to leave civilization behind? Do we have to go back and live like our Stone Age ancestors did? I don't think that's helpful. It's not constructive, it's not practical. And so what I've been doing, and I'm not the only scientist who's been engaged in this endeavor, I have many colleagues. What we have been trying to do is to create a more granular understanding. We need to move away from the concept of civilization, which is a term that includes so many variables, so many dietary and lifestyle variables, and see if we can peer through this fog of variables and different factors and see whether we can discern through the fog a smaller number of drivers of chronic degenerative disease. And it is only if you can do that, and I think we have done that, then you can then begin to propose specific antidotes. And that's where I think we now are. I think we do have a more detailed understanding of the drivers of these so-called diseases of civilization. And for the first place, we can put something in place to prevent them. And it's very necessary that we do, because we have created a modern lifestyle and diet which is extremely pathogenic. That is, it causes disease. And I'm quickly going to go through a number of different pathologies to just show you how bad this situation is. Many specialists don't see this overall picture. The oncologists look at cancer figures, the cardiologists look at heart disease figures. What I try to do is to stand up in my little cubicle, look over the walls and talk to all the other specialists and take all their information and put it together. So let's try to do that. Now, we know that since 1950, not 1990, cancers in teens and young adults have doubled. We know that since 1990, that there has been a steady increase in a lot of different cancers. So early onset, that means these are cancers in young adults, typically below the age of 50. So we're seeing increases of cancers of the breast, colorectal, endometrium, and so on and so forth. These are all the important cancers, and all of them are increasing. And this is very, very well referenced. And these trends are getting worse. What that means is that clearly, if people are developing cancer by the age of 45 or 50, and we know it takes a long time once you've been exposed to a carcinogenic factor to develop a clinical cancer, what this means is that we are being exposed from a very early age, probably from birth and possibly before birth, to what they call the exposome. That is all of the dietary and lifestyle factors that we are exposed to. It's carcinogenic and it's affecting us from birth, as I said, if not below. And if that was all, it would be a huge problem. But we are also seeing very significant increases in the number of pathologies which involve the central nervous system. So schizophrenia is increasing. You might not be so aware of that, as the people tend to be of the neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism, Asperger's, ADD, and all those things. But schizophrenia, which overlaps to a little bit with those conditions, is also increasing, as is borderline personality, and hikikomori, which is another version of a central nervous system that just isn't properly coherent, and creates enormous amounts of unhappiness, both for the people with this syndrome and the people who are around them. Huge increases in gender dysphoria. I think it's almost 1 in 4 children in high school in the United States now have a degree of gender confusion. This is not just because of extraordinarily inept teaching, but there's also clearly changes in their endocrinology and changes in the way their brains are being built from a very early age, which is feeding into this. Trauma-induced brain damage. Our brains have become very much more vulnerable than they used to be to the hard knock life. The American football players, most of them are brain damaged by the time they retire, as increasingly are professional rugby players. Did it always used to be like this? No. A generation ago, that was simply not the case. Related to this is a staggering, a very significant increase in the numbers of people with epilepsy, focal epilepsy, and others, eating disorders, and then moving towards the immune system, allergies and autoimmune diseases also increasing by leaps and bounds. And then we have the neurodegenerative diseases. The figures for dementia and Parkinsonism, alarming increases we've seen over the last generation. NIDDM, type 2 diabetes, NAFLD, non-alcohol related fatty liver disease, now thought to account for 1 in 4 of the entire global population. I hope you're getting the picture now that this is a sick world and it is getting sicker. But I won't stop there. Sarcopenia, generally age-related muscle loss, which is a very significant cause of morbidity and mortality. It goes unreported, but that's increasing. Osteopenia and osteoporosis, skeletal fragility, frailty syndrome. This is something for women. They're more concerned about this. Lipedema, that's increasing. Gout, a very old-fashioned disease, is making a huge comeback. And sepsis. Now we're talking once more about the immune system simply not functioning as it used to. Huge numbers of people suffering from chronic pain. That's clearly on the increase. There are different forms of chronic pain, but all of them appear to be increasing in most countries in the world. Chronic pain in children. You shouldn't have a condition which causes chronic pain when you're young, but now chronic pain in children affects about 10%, certainly in North America. Chronic illness in children. This is supposed to be a period of your life when you're healthier than average, but chronic illness, hypertension, NAFLD, allergies, migraines, all of them increasing. Female infertility, male infertility as well, benign prostatic hyperplasia, shooting through the roof, and alopecia, hair loss. Now, you probably didn't think of that as a disease of civilization. Actually, it makes quite a lot of sense to think of hair loss as something that's related to our modern diet and lifestyle. I've written about this recently, and the evidence is rather strong. The only things that are decreasing are hand grip muscle strength, and that is important because the strength of your handshake is a proxy for your overall muscular fitness. That's declining. And life expectancy, which has now in the last 2 years fallen by 3 years in the United States, which is remarkable, and around 2 years in the United Kingdom, and is showing falls in selected communities in other countries all over the world. So this is a sick and a problematic society, which we need to find treatments for. Drugs are not the answer. What we need to do is to change those aspects of our lifestyle which are causing these problems. And by that, I don't mean abandoning civilization. I mean countering the drivers, the pathogenic drivers, the drivers of disease that the modern diet and lifestyle has created. So what are they? They are chronic inflammatory stress, type B malnutrition, dysbiosis, and glycemic mismatch. If you can counter those, if you can put antidotes in place, which will prevent the damaging effects of those 4 drivers, it's like putting your metabolism in a time machine, sending it back in time 150 years to a time before the arrival on the scene of ultra-processed foods, to a time when, again, before the motor car information technology had appeared, and we were more involved in physical activity, to a time when, according to all the records that we have, the frequency of these so-called diseases of civilization was far less than it is today. Possibly only 10% of the figures that we see today, the tidal waves of disease, which are absolutely overwhelming our healthcare systems. So what do we do to neutralize these drivers? Well, I think you already know the answer to that. To counter chronic inflammatory stress, we have balance oil, which is a unique combination of the omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids and amphiphilic polyphenols, which is extremely effective at damping chronic inflammatory stress in every tissue, with the exception of the large intestine, where the major driver of problems, including chronic inflammatory stress, leaky gut, and endotoxemia, there the major cause of that is dysbiosis, and that we can reverse, we can neutralize by using xenobiotics. So that's neutralized 2 out of the 4 main drivers of chronic degenerative disease. The third, type B malnutrition, we can neutralize with Extend, or Extend Plus if you so wish, which is a very broad-based micro and phytonutrient program. This is not a multivitamin, multimineral product at all. It's far more comprehensive than that. We start with those multivitamin, multimineral. That's the foundation of Extend. But on top of that, we build a number of different levels, including a range of the most critically important phytonutrients, and then an assortment of polyphenols, which provide a whole series of protections in different parts of the body. 1,3,1,6 beta-glucans in a clinically appropriate dose, which improves the functionality of the cellular components of your innate immune system, and an extract of broccoli, which contains isothiocyanates, which are very, very important. They're actually essential for your health, for the functioning of an enzyme called lactoperoxidase, which is a humoral component of your innate immune system. And it's really important to combine these, because if you damp all chronic inflammatory stress with balance oil, if you go too far, you can become a little bit immunodepressed. We don't want that. But by using the ingredients in Extend, we more than make up for that by making sure that your innate immune system is properly primed and ready to repel all borders. Not only that, it has marked anti-allergy effects as well. The fourth driver is glycemic mismatch. This is a situation where you're consuming a diet containing lots of sugars and digestible carbohydrates, which eventually pour glucose into the bloodstream, and where people are living a lifestyle which is insufficiently physical to draw that glucose out of the blood and bring it into the muscles where it can be used for fuel. And here, what we want people to do is to modify their lifestyle, their diet and their lifestyle. This is up to you, and this is something you, the audience, can do for yourselves. Rather less sugars, rather less digestible carbohydrates. Fermentable carbohydrates are fine, and in fact, we advise you to take more of those. Combine that with increased physical activity. And by doing that, you will help to bring your blood glucose under control and avoid the metabolic sequelae to that. This has been shown in a number of clinical trials to reverse metabolic syndrome and actually to cure diabetes. This is nothing to do with anything that we've done. This has been done repeatedly by diabetologists in different countries and has been shown to be effective repeatedly. So by taking these 3 steps involving our 3 Zinzino products and a relatively minor lifestyle change, what you're doing is effectively stepping outside the modern world, metabolically and nutritionally speaking, and you're becoming your own blue zone. You are now adopting effectively the diet, the lifestyle, and the health expectancy of the Kuna Islanders, the Okinawans, the Icarians, and the Sardinians, who have so much better health, whose health span is so much longer than ours, and who have, in consequence, a longer lifespan as well. It turns out that the problems that we thought were so complex and so insurmountable, that behind the complexity, there was lurking a simplicity, which I think we have now identified. And what we see in those people, and there are many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands now who have adopted this approach, what we see is that so many of their health problems fade, they go into remission, and eventually disappear. Very large numbers of people who are following this regime become pharmaceutically independent. So to come back to the dream, I think that now, for the first time, we do have the tools that we need to change our public health from its current disastrous track and make something better out of it. Tools that people can use to improve their own health, the health of their family, their friends, their loved ones, and their communities. Tools that we can use in Zinzino to finally turn this great ship around and restore good public health to anyone who wants it. I think that's worth aiming at, and I think that that's where we are going to arrive with your help. Thank you.